Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of the 15-minute per video OC15 single player demo of Orb and Crown. When we left off, we'd just seen the opening attack of Draka, the Dreadworm, attacking into Angnord with the goal of taking Watersbend Castle, which you can see just here. Watersbend Castle and Watersbend are the seat or the throne of the heir to the throne of Angford, Prince Amund, who is represented by the counter here, and Draka and his Hrothgar's dragon son, and there's a whole backstory of where that guy came from and how he got to be associated with the dragon, wants to take over the capital there. Anyway, the opening attack was quite devastating and will continue to be quite powerful, but the goal of the allied player is to try to see that out, see it off, and counterattack at some stage in the future. Alright, now before we get into the actual turn itself, let's have a bit of a look around the screen and see what's going on. Okay, over in the top left-hand corner are the usual symbols for the different 5 allied countries. Hovering over each one of them will tell you which country it is, what their current industrial modifier is, and their national morale and the usual details about belligerences and so forth. So we've got 5 different countries. Angnord, Angford, which is like the parent country where the king resides. We'll get to him in a moment. We have the Ancient Lands, the Mulcan, and the Tribal League. Alright, now they probably don't mean anything to you, so let's have a bit of a zoom out and have a look at the map from further out or further afield. Alright, so this is the map of the world that Orb and Crown takes place on, or in, whatever. And what we were just looking at is this area here in Angnord. You can see that down here in Angford there's more going on, Mulcan over here, and the Ancient Lands down here. Tribal League won't play much of a part for quite some time. It is probably the most isolated of the 5 different allied countries, and it's a good thing for Tribal League because it allows it to build itself up over a long period of time, pretty much distracted by attacks or the like. Alright, so we've had a bit of a look at Angnord. Angford, let's just click on that and have a look at Angford. Zooming in a bit here. Right, Angford, just to get the context, sorry. You can see there's Angnord up here. Angford is not that far away, but at the moment it is on 21% of full mobilization, so it's got a little way to go. And the situation between Prince Amund, the son of King Amist of Angford, is a cordial one at best. The king is quite paranoid. He's getting into his 80s. He feels as though his son is trying to usurp the throne from him, and he doesn't trust him. So even when this Dreadworm attacks Angnord, he's reticent about actually putting in any effort to come to his aid, his son's aid of all things. So yeah, you can see there's a bit of trouble going on there. Angnord has the ability to make some sort of diplomatic advances towards Angford to change their mind and so forth. We'll get to that a bit later on. So the thing is with Angford though, is that it has the potential to be the strongest of the 5 allied countries, and over time it should actually become quite powerful. It will be beset on all sides at different points. In the west is its here, its adversary Andania, which becomes quite powerful, and in the east its ally or allegiant Moradon will come on board eventually, and then Jotunheim will be its threat as well. Alright, so that's Angford. We'll go into them more as we go along. The Ancient Lands, down here in the desert Ancient Lands, We have, if you're thinking in terms of real world sort of civilizations, it's kind of a cross between Babylon and Egypt and Samaria, those Middle Eastern cradle of civilization type places. So Theros is a place that's actually in one of the Dungeons and Dragons books. I can't remember what it's actually called, but yeah, there is a book dedicated to it, and so this area here is sort of a transplant of that into this world. So the ancient lands will be attacked from the Golden Carnate up here to their north and east, and down here Imhotep is a kind of a pretender to the throne who may try to attack through into the ancient lands. Right, Malkan going across there. You'll see to get to these places, the easiest way to do it is to click on their icons on the left hand side. So that will take you straight to the capital of that particular country, and the capital is Malkanabad down here in the south, but it's a north-south country, and its first priority will be to either defend or perhaps, if it possibly can, attack into Guatemala. Also later on, once Silk Sultanate, one of its potential allegiance, comes on board, that will also be a potential attack to the north against the Vikings of Mittelheim. Finally, as I mentioned just briefly, the Tribal League is over here, isolated from the rest of the world, and will need to build itself up. It starts off very, very weak, with very little that it can actually do of any real use, but over time it becomes quite powerful. Alright, so we'll go back up to Ang Nord, where we were before. And, excuse me, Ang Nord is beset by not only Draka, but also Mittelheim and Norddelm. These are all Viking lands. When I say Viking, I'm not talking about real world Vikings. They're based on those, but of course they're in a fantasy world, so you know, any semblance to historical reality is purely coincidental. Down here we have this place called Guildford. Now that is run by the princess, the sister of Prince Ammon, and she has a 75% chance of joining him any turn. So she could have potentially, and quite often does, have joined him at the end of the adversary's turn. In this case, she hasn't. Sometimes it can last 3 or 4 turns if you're really unlucky before she actually joins against the Dreadworm. Alright, so without further ado, I don't think there's anything that I need to say. So that the strategy of Ang Nord to start off with is to survive. It really doesn't have much that it can do. It certainly cannot attack Draka. If it does, it will be the demise. So I'm going to do what every hero does, is I'm going to say that discretion is the better part of valor. And I'm going to run away. So I'm going to take the prince, move him down here. Now you can leave these two here to try and slow down the Dreadworm a little bit. You definitely won't stop him, but you might slow him down. I'm not going to do that. To take everything out. Force march him out, and force march him out as well. Alright, now you can see that I've got 100 gold pieces that I can use at this point. If I go over here into the west, this keep here, Xander's Keep, can be quite useful to slow things down a bit for the Dreadworm. So I'm going to put 60 gold pieces into that. Whether it's the right thing to do, I'll let you decide. And I'm going to move these ships from the Ang Nord fleet down just, well, up to here to start off with, I think. The only risk of being in the Viking Channel at this point, with Mittelheim not actually mobilized, are the storms. In Orb and Crown, storms will always do damage to the ships affected. It might only be 1 or 2 points, but they will always get affected unless they're, like, you know, undersea units, which of course don't get affected by surface storms. Okay, so I've got 40 gold pieces left, and I will just dump it into that unit there in Donsborough, and that's where the prince is going to set up his new capital. From Donsborough, he will need to really try to build up his forces in readiness for a counter-attack. Alright, Angnord, that's all there is to do with Angnord. I'll just scroll down here to Angford. They are only on 21%, as I said before, so I'm not going to have a lot of gold pieces to throw around, and most of the units are on less than full strength anyway. So with 50 gold pieces, there's nothing I can actually buy, so I will put into the Bishop of Huntington to just build up his strength, which will hopefully help with the morale of the units that are coming to him, because the strategy that I want to apply is to bring those units together here and assist eventually Angnord through this valley here. The lair of the Dreadworm is up here in Yamiran Vale, but most of his activity usually is over here towards Water's Bend. Alright, now down to the Ancients. I'm going to do something that I don't normally do. So this particular playthrough, I don't want to do the usual things that I do, and I'm going to change. I'm going to take on a defensive attitude with the Ancients. I don't normally do that. I actually build up and attack Imhotep down here, but I'm going to go defensive this time. 50 gold pieces, I can't really do much with that, but I can in fact put it into diplomacy. Diplomacy is a lot cheaper in Orb and Crown than it is in the Strategic Command games, so putting it's cost 25 gold pieces for a friendly allegiant, 50, 100, 200, so you can just see that that one would cost me 100. If I wanted to try and affect Potentia, that's an adversary, it's going to cost me 200, so there's no way I can actually do that, and wouldn't want to waste the money anyway. So I want to bring or help bring on board this country here, Sinai. Let's just have a look at where that is. Oops. Sinai is right over here, and Xinhua is here as well. Both of those are potential allegiance of the ancient lands. So of course what that does is two things. Firstly, it gives the gold piece contribution, of course. The other thing is that they both sit on the southern border of the Golden Khanate. So if I can get them on side, or one of them on side at least, then they can be a threat to that border. Alright, so for now all I'm going to do is put in diplomacy into Sinai. I can put one into Sinai, and the other one would come from Malkan when we get to them, and Xinhua I'll put one into them as well. Okay, normally have two. The chances of a diplomatic movement are increased and the cost is decreased, so you won't get any more of those 4% changes when you have a success, which to me is so demoralizing. You will have a minimum usually of around about a 10% swing. So diplomacy is so critical in Orb and Crown that you'll always want to check that, perhaps even at the beginning of every turn, to make sure that you are putting yourself in the position where you might get a new allegiant and their gold piece contributions fairly quickly. Alright, we've got a minute to go before the 15 minutes is up, so with what have I got left? Nothing. So I won't be doing anything there. I'll just move this unit into Carchemish, and that's about it for now. No, I'm going to build on my fleet. Can't do that. What am I talking about? Alright, over to Malkan. There is very little to do with them. I'm going to move as much as I can up to the north, because that's where the action is going to be. So I'm going to move these units all up to the north, force marching them all the way as much as I possibly can, because they really do need to get a wriggle on so that they can be up there in time for a potential attack from Guatemala. Right. So there's no real urgency about that just yet, but it becomes more urgent later. I normally send the Mulcahn's Navy up to the Viking Channel to help Angnord, but like I said, I don't want to do normal this time. 200 gold pieces, I'm not going to spend it because for them and for the Tribal League, the whole purpose is going to be to build up an elite force. Alright, so that is 15 and a quarter minutes, so I will say goodbye to you from now and I'll see you next episode.